Yes, today is Thursday, June 21st, 2018. I'm Joe Reingold, and I'm interviewing Meyer Denn for our oral history archives. Good afternoon, Mayor. How are you?
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your family, what you remember or what you know about your grandparents and your parents, where they lived, where they grew up, etc.
I was born in Bay City, Texas on August 15th, 1962. My parents were Sidney Denn and Gertrude Estelle Rosenzweig Denn. My father was also born in Bay City on April the 6th, 1924, and my mother was born in Houston on June 23rd, 1923. Both sets of families came to America at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. Both had numerous siblings, and the eldest sibling is the one who came here first and then sort of set up roots and then sent for each of the other siblings to come over. So my mother's family, the family came from Lublin in Poland, which is Russian Poland. My uncle Harry Rosenzweig came and settled in the city of Richmond, Texas, around 1899, 1901, somewhere in that time frame, 1900. And he sent for his wife around 1901. So he must come a little before 1901. He must come around 1899, 1900. Sent for her 1901. And she came with one of his brothers, his youngest brother, and they came with two children. As a matter of fact, one of those children, Aaron Rosenzweig, is the great-grandfather of, in Dallas here, is it Rosen?
There is a Rosenzweig family here.
No, that's a different Rosenzweig family.
Oh.
This is. Do you know Carol Rosen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Carol Rosen.
Okay.
Carol Rosen is a second cousin to me. Her grandfather was Uncle Harry, who brought the rest of us over. And then the other one that's also a second cousin, no, her mother was a second cousin, is, just a second, she's on the Federation Board, and she was the president of Temple Emmanuel about 2 presidents ago. Who could that have been? It'll come to me in a little bit. I'll think of it.
Okay.
We'll come back to it. So there were let's see, 4 siblings. There was Harry. There was the second one was Sadie, was a sister. She married a man named Max Barenbaum in Houston. This one was my grandfather Meyer, and then the youngest was Louis Rosenzweig, and each of them settled in Houston, with the exception of Harry, who was Richmond Rosenberg, and the two of the brothers, Meyer and Louis, were in the grocery business in Houston, and Harry was in the dry goods business, and he had about 8 or 9 kids in Richmond, and eventually set each of the kids up in a dry goods business around South Texas. So there were Rosenzweig's stores in my town. It's actually Bay City where I'm from, but our family in Bay City was not so connected to my family, my father's family, so much. So that's my mom's family. She came from a family of about let's see, there were 4 brothers and 1 sister. She was the baby. The oldest was 21 years older than her, so there's quite a gap in age. And that was my mother's family. They came through Galveston. My father's family were from, his father was from a town called Korcina, Korczina, Korcina, they called it in Yiddish Korchin, in Galicia, which was the southern part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was actually the southern province. Today it's in southern Poland. Galicia is divided into two parts today. It's southern Poland on one side, and the other side is in western Ukraine. It's stretched, and it's cut in 2 today. So he was from the Polish area, right near the border with Slovakia. And Slovakia at the time was also the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but they considered themselves ethnic Hungarian type people. And so he was born in Korcina. My grandmother was, that's on one side of the border, on the Galician side, the Polish side. My grandmother was born just in a little village, which is the last village on the border before you cross into Poland, to Galicia, called Chertizna, and that was in Slovakia, or Czechoslovakia, or at that time Hungary. And my grandparents' names, my grandfather's name was Joe Denn, and my grandmother's name was Blima, or Bertha Schwindler. And he was one of 5 kids, I believe, four kids. He was the baby, and she was also the baby, one of like 5 sisters and 1 brother. And my grandfather, one of his older brothers came to America in 1901, was in New York, and he had 2 siblings that remained behind in Europe and died in Europe, and my grandfather was the baby. He came over and was brought, he came to Texas, and my grandmother had an older brother and 5 sisters. And the oldest brother's name was Joe Schwartz. He changed the name from Schwindler to Schwartz because people in business don't want to do business with a swindler. So his grandson, Joe Schwartz's grandson, is Fred Zeidman. Fred Zeidman was recently the President Bush appointed to be the chairman of the U.S. Holocaust Commission. So he was the head of the Holocaust Commission and the museum in Washington. And he's also very active in Israel bonds in Houston and all the Israeli AIPAC and those kind of things. He's very active in that. Joe Schwartz, he had two daughters. One was Zeidman, married a Zeidman, and the other married a Wadler. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Wadler family in Houston. And their son, Wadler's son, he was the concertmaster of the Houston Philharmonic Orchestra for I don't know how many, Houston Symphony, for decades. And so Joe Schwartz's daughter married Paul Wadler, which was her first cousin. And so there was a Wadler connection there as well. I don't know if you know the Lermans here in Dallas. There's two brothers, Mark Lerman and Melvin Lerman. They're both doctors. They are grandchildren of the Wadlers. Their mother was a Wadler, and they're my second cousins as well. Let's see. So one daughter married a Wadler. They lived in Wharton. They came from New York and settled in Wharton. Then they had another daughter married a Kreidstein. That's a sister of my grandmother, Kreidstein. Another one married a Goldman. They lived in Bay City. And there was one sister, and Rosie married a Donenfeld. They lived in New York. So one sister lived in New York. All the other siblings lived in Wharton and in Bay City. My grandmother married Joe Denn. They lived in Bay City. She was the baby.
And a lot of them, most of them came up through Galveston.
No, that part of the family came through New York.
Oh, they all came.
All of them came to New York and took trains, took the train from New York down to Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a break from around 1908 to 1920 when my grandmother came. The sister before her came 1908 or 1907, I guess. And there was a break in time. She was the baby, and there was the war in between World War I. And then my grandfather was in the Austro-Hungarian Army in World War I. And that ended with 1918. And 1920, they came to America in November of 1920 on the SS Olympic, sailed to New York, and they took the train down. So all that side of the family came not through Galveston, but through New York.
Okay, very good. You have a very big family, it sounds like. Lots of cousins, lots of aunts and uncles. That's
correct.
That's
we grew
wonderful.
up in a very, very close family in this little community in Bay City and in Wharton. Our shul was in Wharton, Texas. It was a 20-mile drive from Bay City. And the shul in Wharton was called Sherith Israel Congregation. It served the communities of Bay City, Wharton, El Campo, Edna, Palacios, a few small towns in that area. But Wharton was the seat of the Jewish community. So whenever you had, like, well, for example, you had Hadassah, and Henrietta Zold came to Wharton to establish Hadassah in 1915. She came herself there. And the story was that she went to Houston and Galveston, and they were not interested in Zionism there. And they told her there's a little town, take a wagon, it'll take you to get half a day to get there from Houston, and maybe they'd be interested. And she did come to Wharton, and she came and stayed with my great aunt, Aunt Hannah Kreidstein, stayed in her home. And that evening, all the Jews from all the settlements came to Wharton, and they heard her speak about this new idea of Zionism and what it meant in Palestine, the Jews in Palestine, and they established the first Hadassah. They called it a circle. They didn't call them chapters, they called them circles. And they needed 10 women to establish a circle, and they only had 7 women that were interested in doing it. They took 3 of the little girls, one being Bee Zeidman, another one being Margie Schwartz Wadler, and one little girl from El Campo. And together, the other 7 women, they established the first Hadassah circle.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, and they used to tell me, those little girls, I knew them, and they used to tell me about their memory of Henrietta Zold when she came. And I found they had a letter from 1939, and it was a handwritten letter, and it said, Henrietta Zold, Jerusalem, Palestine. And it was handwritten, the date, and it said to the Wharton chapter of Hadassah, they sent her a telegram on the 25th anniversary to Palestine and said, we want to congratulate you on our 25th anniversary. And she outlines in that letter her memories of coming by wagon to Wharton and how all the little girls in the school, and she remembered that, she remembered this, and she remembered that, and that, then it meant, welcoming a stranger to your homes. And now it means, it was a very beautiful letter she wrote about it. There's no record, any biography about Henrietta Zold that she was ever there.
Really?
Yeah. No,
because I have records of her coming here and establishing the chapter and meeting at Sherith Israel here in Dallas, but that was about 1917. So she did Wharton
Correct,
first, before
correct.
that. Wow.
But there's no
That's
record,
great.
any biography or anything that
No.
she was ever here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe I can find something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
All right.
the family was in talking about the Wharton and Bay City family, were in dry goods.
Mhm.
Uncle Joe Schwartz became the most prosperous dry goods merchant in Wharton. And he, as I mentioned to you before, he sent money for each of the siblings to come to America and help set them up in business and everything. And he was in dry goods. The others were also in dry goods. One was a shoemaker. My family, we got into the grocery business and started off being in fruit business in Wharton. They were there for about a year in Wharton and didn't make it, and they got an opportunity to buy a grocery store in Bay City, and they did, and that's when they moved to Bay City. I had another aunt, Aunt Esther Goldman, and she and her husband started a store in Bay City also.
Was your dad involved in that business, the grocery?
No, not at that time. My dad went into the sporting business. He created he and his brothers went into business together in Bay City after the war, when they came back.
Oh, okay. So they were in sporting goods.
They were in sporting goods. They actually started off in the Army-Navy, Army-Navy surplus business. There was a lot of surplus goods after the war, and they could be bought very cheap. And I have actually video of he and his brothers, before they all passed away, they're telling their story about how they went into business and how they, the whole story about it. But it's very interesting because at that time, the Army-Navy surplus business was very, there was a lot of goods, and there was a lack of goods in America at the time. And so they went and bought $1,000 worth of merchandise in Houston and on a big truck and started loading it and coming back to Bay City. And as they were unloading it, people were running, because they all knew the Den boys.
Right.
They were running from different parts of town. What do you got? They had, I don't know, tools and secondhand clothes. And as they were unloading it off the truck, people were buying it. They were just throwing numbers, prices out at them. Okay, so that's $5, that's $2.
Yeah.
Before they could get it unloaded, they'd already sold everything. So they went back with the profit they made, and they bought 2 or 3 more loads. And so my aunt Esther Goldman was a divorcee. She divorced like in 1927, and so she was a second mother to my father and his. She had no children. To my father, my uncles, and my aunt, and so she had her store in a block down the road. My grandparents had their store. She had more of a general store, general store. And so what she said to them was, look, take this corner of the store and bring your merchandise in. Now, we'll start a little business there. But by the second, third day, fourth day, it started taking up more and more space. And she says, okay, look, she's here. She drew it in the middle of the store. I'll take this half of the store, and you take half of the store. Within a matter of a few months, she said, okay, take the whole thing. I'll retire. She got out and she gave them the business. So the business started and it took off really well, and they were very successful in it. And they built a very, very profitable business. And it evolved from Army-Navy, guns, ammunition, fishing tackle, fishing supplies, rods and reels. And it evolved into a full-line sporting goods store. And actually, the sporting goods industry was not a well-established industry before this time. And they rolled, as the industry evolved, they were on the forefront of evolving that business, and it became all over the Gulf Coast of Texas. Most people knew that the name of that business, Den Brothers Sporting Goods.
Did your parents stay in Bay City their whole lives?
So my mother grew up in Houston, and she loved living in Houston. She was more of a city girl. And when my dad and mom met, my mother's a pianist, and she used to perform on the radio, and she used to perform for, she was part of an all-girls band and things. This is World War II era. And she used to do a lot of weddings for people, friends getting married, and people she knew would ask her to play at the wedding, and she would. And she happened to play the piano at my father's brother's wedding. And before the wedding, she invited my mother to come to the rehearsal dinner. She says, listen, my husband has a brother like you to meet. And she met my dad. And so that was in March of '46, and they were married September '46.
Good shidduch.
Yeah, good shidduch.
That was
Yeah,
good.
right.
And she didn't mind moving to being in a smaller
She didn't want to move
city?
to a small city. She did not want to move to Bay City. And
Yeah.
my father promised her that they would eventually move back to Houston. And they had their 50th wedding anniversary. They were still in Bay City. And my mom said, Sidney, you always promised me you're going to move me back to Houston. He goes, you know what? I lied, he said. He used to say, I have one more piece of property. I'm making one more move. I own a piece of property. It's about 6 feet by 3 feet. And it's in Wharton, Texas. That's the next move I'm going to make. And 2 months later, he made the move. Yeah.
My parents had a similar story. My father kept promising my mother she could go back to Brooklyn. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The first year of their marriage, they lived in New Orleans. I had an uncle, my mother's brother lived in New Orleans, had a very successful business in New Orleans. And he hired my father to come to work for him there. And they described that year as a year-long honeymoon. They just loved living in New Orleans, and they would have stayed. But my father's brothers came back to Bay City and were going into business.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned to you how they built the business over the first year. They had just
Right.
grown and grown, and they said, we need some more capital.
Right.
And they called my father and they said, look, we always talked about as kids going business together. Would you come back to Bay City? And my father approached my uncle in New Orleans and said, look, is there a future for me here? Can I buy part of the business? And my uncle said, look, I've had a partner before. And as long as you work for me, you're gonna get a great salary. I will take care of you really well, but I don't have any partners. My father said, well, I have to take this opportunity. And we moved back to Bay City.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you grew up there.
I grew up in Bay City.
What were your high school years like? What's memorable to you?
I loved high school. I mean, I didn't love school, but I loved high school. I was always like into leadership. I always wanted to be in student government and sort of like whenever I joined a club, the club always had me be the president of the club. So I liked that, and it was enjoyable. Look, I grew up, by the time I came along, there were probably, when I was a little kid, probably about 25 to 30 families, Jewish families in Bay City. And when I was young, let's say before 1970, there were probably about 12,000 citizens in Bay City. It's about the size it was. Wharton was always smaller than Bay City, probably about closer to 10,000, 9,000. There were a few more Jews in Wharton than there were in Bay City, probably about 35, 40 families in Wharton, about 25, 30 families in Bay City, and then in El Campo, probably 10, 12 families, and in Edna, 1 or 2 families, 3 families. By the time I came along, I was at the end of the generation, so I was the last of the baby boomers. I was born in '62, and so all my brothers, older brothers, and all my cousins and their friends, at one time it was a very vibrant young community. We had a Young Judea chapter, and called the Young Stars of David, and we would meet every Sunday. We'd go to Wharton to Sunday school at the shul in Wharton, and afterwards they'd have Young Judea meetings and activities and stuff. We had a Jewish community hall in Bay City called the Beth David Center, and that we would meet there for Friday night services, where we do like Friday night lay-led services, and we'd have a potluck supper once a month. We'd have a gathering, a social gathering, all Jewish community there, and it was a very warm community. Everybody hugged and kissed, and they were cousins, and if they weren't cousins, they were almost cousins, kind of thing. People were a big family, and at the holidays time, when we go to shul in Wharton, all the kids that had gone away to college or had gone away to move, they'd always come back, and services were always, in the shul. Sunday school we'd go, and we had a little flagpole in the center of the property, and we'd come out and of Sunday school, we'd all go to semicircle around the flagpole, and we'd raise the Israeli flag and the American flag, and we'd sing Hatikva, and we'd sing, Star Spangled Banner. It was a very Zionist community. Back to Bay City. So by the time I came along, I was the last of the Mohicans. And so while there were no other Jewish kids in the school system, I was very proud of being Jewish. And so when we'd have show and tell, it was my turn. I would always it would be Hanukkah time, I'd bring them a menorah. Or I'd bring my mother would make latkes and bring them to school, and the kids would taste latkes. I'd tell them about them. Or Pesach time would be matzah, or apples and honey, Rosh Hashanah time, or I'd always bring things that were, and I'd share that.
Related, yeah.
That was for me very exciting.
I'm assuming or did you feel any anti-Semitism at all? It wasn't?
Not overt anti-Semitism. No. Meaning, what I mean by that is, people would say things that were anti-Semitic, but had no reason, no. They didn't know why they didn't know why they were anti-Semitic. To say to somebody like, "Let me Jew you down on this thing here," they had no clue why they were saying that word. It's just that they'd always heard that. So,
right.
Would you call it anti-Semitism? I'm not sure you could say it's anti-Semitism, because I don't know that they said it because they knew what it meant. Why the word Jew? What the connection between being Jew and being something cheap?
So there was no cruelty attached to it at all.
No, that's what I mean. So people would say that's anti-Semitic. Well, maybe the words are anti-Semitic, but I don't think the intention behind it was anti-Semitic. So, I remember my first cousin telling me she went to Sunday school one time with one of the girls in school, and she said that they were all held hands and danced in a circle and said, "The Jews killed Christ. The Jews killed Christ." Over and over, something like that. But I didn't experience that, and I always hear people pinching pennies and saying, "Here, Jew, get some pennies for you," or something like that. I didn't see that. I didn't experience that, but I heard about that. Again, I was always elected, the most popular, and so I mean that didn't hit me that way.
And where did you go to college?
I went to college. The first college I went to was Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I was interested in becoming an actor. I wanted to be in acting, and I realized when I got there, that there were other kids who were more talented than me, and it got me scared. When I was a big fish in a little pond, and I was like the lead actor, and I got all the awards for acting and everything, and I was feeling pretty confident and pretty secure. When I got there and I saw that you're not getting near a stage till your senior year, you're gonna be putting makeup, you're gonna be building sets, you're gonna be doing, that wasn't what I bought into. So and Carnegie Mellon was a very hard, I had to audition to get there. There were great, I auditioned for Juilliard, Carnegie Mellon, and the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I got into both Carnegie Mellon and American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And so I took Carnegie Mellon and was there for less than a year. I was there for like one semester, and I realized this is not what I want. And I felt like I wanted more of a secure life. I didn't want to, actors were always filing files and filing cabinets, they were waiting tables, and the chances of success were so minimal. And I just, at that point, got, you know what, I want something more secure than that. So I went back to Texas, went back to Bay City, and I had missed, of course I couldn't go back to UT at that point, so I had to, in the fall I was going to go to UT, so I was stuck in the spring without something to do. So I went to work at our family's business, the sporting goods store, and while I was doing that, I had always been very active in local politics. And whenever a politician would come to town to run for office and to meet with the city fathers, they would pull me into those meetings too when I was 10, 11, 12, because I used to go pass out cards, knock on doors, pass out cards, so I was really very active in that. I had fiery red curly hair, like an afro, and very spry, and very, when I was in junior high, I was the president of the student council, and I remember we didn't have Coke machines in the school, and the school across town did. And I said, if you let me, I'm gonna get Coke machines in the school, And as a matter of fact, what I did was, I went to the principal, we had a student government, we passed a law, and it went to him for a signature, either he passed it or he vetoed it. And we passed the law through the student legislature requesting Coke machines, he vetoed it. So I said, okay, no one had done this before. I said, I'm gonna meet with the superintendent of schools, and I'm gonna see if I can override your veto. So I took a delegation of young students, and at 7 o'clock in the morning went to the school district building, had a formal meeting with the superintendent, met with him, and he issued a letter a few weeks later saying, I'm gonna back the principal's decision not to do this. And I said, fine. So I have one more suggestion. I'd like to be on the board of the school board meeting. I'd like to be on the agenda for the school board meeting. And I did. And I made my presentation, and it became a big, the newspaper, the front page of the newspaper, the whole thing, just told the story. And before they could give their decision, the principal resigned. A new principal came, and the first thing he did was put a Coke machine in, and he called me to come get the first Coke. And I was going to high school the next year, I was going out, so that was my first successful. Wow. So that's the kind of thing that I would do as a student. So what happened now, going back to when I was in between Carnegie Mellon and going to UT, a group of local citizens came to me and said, we'd like you to run for mayor. I was 18. And I said, come on, I'm 18 years old, but Meyer, the city, right now we're in between right now, there's a difficult time the city's going through. You don't have any kind of political, baggage. You could really win. And I said, come on. So I met with some other leaders. I met with the head of the NAACP, the head of LULAC, other people that I respected. And they said, you know what? Why don't you run for city council? And you get some experience. And if you want to run for mayor after that, you can run for mayor. And I said, people really vote for me? They said, yeah, I think people would vote for you. And I said, well, there's 3 positions coming open. What do I want to run for? There was a Latino running, there was a African American running, and there was a lady running. I'm sorry, there was a Latino running, a lady running, and the man, the Anglo who was running was the head of the First Baptist Church. He was the head deacon. A big block vote, And both the NAACP and the Latino said, we can't support you if you run against the lady or the Latino, but if you run against him, we'll put our support behind you. And they did, and I won. So I was elected to city council at Bay City in 1981 at the age of 18, and I think at that time I was the youngest elected official in state history. And
probably in the whole country.
Yeah, I don't know. Some kid in Iowa was 11 years old and got elected to mayor. It's like 12 people in this city. Anyway, so I remember I was on Channel 11 on the CBS News. They I was on a lot of newspapers, and Dallas Morning News did a story. It was a lot of fun. And for 2 years I did that. I went to Wharton County Junior College during that time. Okay. Got my basics out of the way. And then after that 2-year period of being on city council, I did not run again, and that's when I went back to school at UT. And I majored in history with a minor in Jewish studies.
Okay.
And also for a semester, I went to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. During that time, I was able to do the year abroad program. I did it in a semester and a half, and came back and finished my degree at UT.
Wow. So after that, did you end up here?
No.
No.
After that, I graduated, and I was going to go back into the family's business. And I had a group of people who wanted me to run for mayor, and another group wanted me to run for state representative. And as a state representative, the salary was like $7,500 a year. You can't do that to make a living. So I was going to go into the family business. And at that time, my father was in business with two brothers, and they had been partners for 50 years. And there was a sort of a silent understanding they didn't want any other kids going into the business. So it made it very difficult for me. And eventually, I decided, well, I'm not going to stay here. I had a falling out with one of the uncles. And I then had to decide where I'm going to go. I had a brother living at that time in California, and I had a brother living in Israel. We were four brothers in my family.
Okay.
Four brothers. One of my brothers lives here in Dallas, Steve Den.
Right.
And so, should I turn that off?
Yeah,
Okay. So my parents didn't want to see another brother living up in Israel. So the brother in California went out, and I went to spend time with him. And I ended up being in LA for about 20 years with a 5-year hiatus in Israel.
Oh.
So from 1986 to 1997, 86, 97, I was in Los Angeles. And then from 97 to 2001, I was in Israel. 2001 to 2007, I was in LA again. Okay? So when I went to Los Angeles, I had just graduated college. My first job was working for Oshman Sporting Goods. Now, Jake Oshman, had started his first store in Bay City, Texas.
Oh.
So our families were very good friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
And you knew the business very well.
The business quite well.
Yeah.
So when I went to Los Angeles, they were very happy to bring me into management there. But I really wasn't happy with that. I wasn't a sportsman. Didn't love sporting goods. If it was my own business, okay. But what I really liked doing, I enjoyed Jewish things. I enjoyed Jewish life. So I was in Los Angeles, and now I'm working on Fridays and Saturdays. I don't have time to go to. I can't go to shul, go to synagogue because Friday nights I'm working. So my mother sent me an article in the Hadassah magazine that said the Bay City Synagogue on the Venice Boardwalk. And she said, isn't that a coincidence? You're from Bay City, and it was Bay City Synagogue. And I don't know if you know who Michael Medved is.
Yes.
So Michael Medved was the president of the Bay City Synagogue, and Rabbi Daniel Lappin was the rabbi there.
Okay.
And so whenever someone came into the store where I was working and they were wearing a yarmulke, I would tell the salespeople, let me deal with them. I can do sales. So this guy comes in wearing a yarmulke and a beard, and he's looking at a recumbent bicycle. It was once you sit in here, like this here.
Yeah.
And he said, he was Shitz with this, and Patchkin with this, and Schitzner with this. And I looked at him and I said, Wus Mitchen Sie dort? Das ganze Metzia in the größte Geschäft. And he looked at me and goes, you're Jewish? Yeah. You don't look Jewish. You got to come to my shul. You're from Texas, they're going to love you. You got to come to. So it turns out it was the same shul, the Bay City Synagogue. So I went there, and I really liked it. It was neat, but it was Orthodox. It was modern Orthodox. But most of the people that were there came from similar backgrounds to me: conservative, reform, not so connected, people who had gone through the counterculture of the 60s and the 70s. They tried Hindu and Buddha and everything, and now they were coming back to really, what is my own roots? What is really to be Jewish? What does it mean? And I really liked it. It was neat. Every Shabbat, people would go to people's homes they never met before and have Shabbat meals, and you learned the specialness of Shabbat. So someone suggested they were looking for an executive director there. They said, why don't you consider this young guy? He's very funny. He's I was acting. I did stand-up comedy,
But you also had a strong Jewish background.
Had a strong Jewish background.
Yeah.
So they said, well, let's interview him. So they interviewed me, and they offered me the position as executive director, and it was an opportunity to build something, to grow something that wasn't so established before. It was like they had an administrator there, part-time, but they never had a full-time executive director, and they were doing fundraising, and they were doing outreach programming and education. They had a school, the Emanuel Streisand School, which was established by Barbara Streisand for her father. And there was a lot of Hollywood types who were there that I worked with, Elliot Gould and Steven Spielberg and people like that. So I took the job, and did that for 10 years. It was a very exciting time in my life. And
What's the
during
name of the synagogue?
It was called the Pacific Jewish Center. And the synagogue was called the Bay City Synagogue. It eventually was all called, became Pacific Jewish Center. But it really changed my life in that while the organization itself was Orthodox, membership in the synagogue was based on attending one class a week. You could give $10,000 a year as membership or $50 a year as membership. That didn't make you a member. What made you a member was the participation in one educational class a week.
Oh.
And so it was very different, and it was also not a judgmental place where if you're going to drive to my house, don't come on Shabbat. You know, it was very much in your own time, at your own growth pace, and it allowed me over that 10-year period to become observant in my own terms, taking on what I wanted, when I wanted to do it, and when it felt right to do it, and it allowed me to really change my life. I grew up in a conservative movement, Young Judea, conservative movement, and it educated me as to where our roots are from and why it worked for me in the modern day. So.
Were you still single at this period?
I was still single and dating.
Yeah.
And so that was a very profound experience in my life, to work with someone like Rabbi Daniel Lappin and Michael Medved, and to be exposed to that brand of Judaism, to strengthen my own resolve and my own self-confidence as who I am and what I believe.
So how was your journey to Israel? How did that come about?
Okay, so I had two brothers who had spent significant time on kibbutz in Israel. And my bar mitzvah year, my mother took me to Israel for bar mitzvah, and that was my first experience in Israel. And so I always looked up to these brothers. They traveled to Israel. They did a 3-month backpacking through Europe, and I'm going to do that. Well, no, in Bay City, your standard kid in Bay City had no interest in doing that. They knew their little world. They were going out drinking beer on Friday nights. And they were, spending their money like that. I was saving my money because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I couldn't convince any of these non-Jewish friends to come with me, come have this lifetime experience. No. So after I finished my city council tour, and I was always very, very interested in my own Jewish history. By the way, let me see if she sent the picture. I want to show you this photo that she sent me, my daughter. So what really got me excited about genealogy, which was what sort of got me into Judaism, was I always used to ask my grandparents questions about the villages, the town they came from, and they didn't want to talk about it. They just weren't interested. What is he asking these questions? What in the hell he's got to know this stuff? They died, they're gone already. But leave it, let them rest in peace over there. And I would go to the courthouse, because the courthouse was right in Bay City, and I'd pull out death certificates of my grandmother, and her father's name and her mother's name were on there, and the birth dates. I was always interested in that. Well, this Aunt Esther, this one who really gave my father and my uncle the business, when she passed away, she had no children, and all the nieces and nephews came to her at the house to take the things they wanted, the memories and things. My father came home and had something behind his back. He said, "I brought something for you." I said, "What?" And he pulled this out. And I don't know if you can get the video, get a picture of this.
We can hold it up close to the camera.
He pulled this picture out, this photo.
Wow. Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Okay? Can you see it?
Yeah, very
That
well.
is Mordechai Schwindler and Feige Perel Yosefovich, my great-grandparents, my grandmother's parents.
Oh, beautiful.
And I stood there looking at that photograph, and I'd say, "Who are they? Who are these people?" And Dad says, "This is your great-grandparents." "What were their names?" My dad says, "I don't even know their names." My grandparents, his grandparents, he says, "I don't even know their names." But Pop, it was his mother and father-in-law, and they can tell you their names. So I started fascinating. Who were these people? What were they? What were they all about? And how do I, looking like this, wearing jeans, how do I descend from this? This is only 40 years before, and I was like 10 years old, 9 years old when I saw this picture. So I was in love with this picture. That sort of stimulated my excitement. And then not long after that, we found a reel-to-reel interview that my uncle, my mother's brother, had done with his father in 1957. He was 80 in 57, so I still have this recording of his life, telling his life story. He was born in 1877, and he's telling this story of his life. And I hear the voice of the man that I'm named after, who I've always told these stories about. When I went to bed at night or in the afternoon to take a nap, my mom would not read storybooks. She told me stories about her parents and her grandparents, things she heard stories. That's what I loved, those kind of stories. So that's what got me excited. So when I finished the city council period, I took that trip, and then I went back to Czechoslovakia and Poland to go to the villages. And I went back to these places where they were from, and at a time during the communist era when there was martial law in Poland at that time. It was not it wasn't free. It was during not Glasnost. What do they call it? Solidarity. Solidarity. And General Jaruzelski was the premier, and Lech Walesa was trying to get into power. Everything. So, I mean, that's when I was there during that time. And communist KGB people were following me around. I know they were following me around because I had a cousin that I found there, and he took me all to these places. And after I left, he was brought into the police station and interrogated. What was he doing with this American? So, so this genealogy part has a big part of this whole picture of what brought me to be so fascinated with Judaism and the continuity of Judaism, why it's so important. So I'm sorry I keep jumping around, but I'm trying to supplement the questions you're asking me.
Sure.
So now get back to what was I doing at Pacific Jewish Center. So I saw this as the link to help other Jews come back to a more traditional, or may not come back, it's their choice of whether to come back. The point is to, what I came to understand was that it's fine if people reject Jewish tradition and Jewish law, but at least know it, understand it, and know what it is you're saying no to.
Right.
Because it might just be something, it might just be something that might have value to you. What is Shabbat? You can say, all restrictions of Shabbat, and you got to do this, you can't do this, you can. Well, maybe those things you say you can't do, maybe those things can be, you get to. I mean, you get to be with your family that you don't have time for the rest of the week. You get to be disconnected from work that you're connected to every other 6 days of the week. You get to, maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. Maybe if you experience it, so that's the idea. Give people the opportunity to know what it is and educate them about what it is to be Jewish and what different streams of Judaism offer. So Israel, how did I end up with Israel? My father passed away in 1996, and we were sitting Shiva in Bay City, and my brother from Israel is there, and he says to me, "So Nu, what are you going to do now?" So go back home, go to work. He goes, "Well, so what's going on with work? You're obviously, you have a place to go, you can grow in your work." I said, "No, I can't because I'm at the top of my work. I can't go any higher." Okay, so, and you're married and settled down now. I said, "No, I'm not married. I'm settled. So you're single. You can't go in your work." Okay, so and everything started laying out for me. He started saying to me, "Schmendrick, of all of the brothers, you're the most Zionist, most Jew. Why wouldn't you come to Israel now while you can? You're not tied down to anything, and explore it and see what it's like to live there and see maybe that Israel's a place that you might want to live." So I thought about it, and it made sense. So I went to Israel at that time, 1997, and I was there for 5 years. I worked for the Jewish Agency in the Budget and Finance Department. I was basically writing proposals for funding for major donors in the United States. That was a time when things were changing in the culture of giving. It used to be, is our grandparents, and you'll remember this, when they wrote letters, checks to the UJA and JNF, they just wrote a check blank. They didn't care what it was. They didn't know where. They didn't ask where it was going. What was to be done with it? But as their children grew into it, they were different than their parents. They didn't want to say, "Here's, just do whatever you want to do with it." They'd say, "Where's the money going to go?" "Well, I don't like my money going to that. I'd like it to go to this." So the agency was in a position where they took their budget. They said, "Okay, look, we're not going to do new programs, but let's find those things that are sellable." So a donor likes things with Ethiopian kids with disabilities. We have in the north 3 absorption centers that host Ethiopian families. How many kids there are having disabilities? So we write up a proposal, and I'd give it to the donor, or to the Federation of the United States that did it. That's what I did for the Jewish Agency. And at the same time, I also became a licensed tour guide with the Ministry of Tourism. I got a license to do that. And it was a great experience being there for 5 years. However, I was dating, and nothing really happened there. And I came back for my best friend's wedding in Los Angeles, and at the wedding I met a young lady, and it just clicked, and I was like only going to be there for like a week, and I said, "I got to explore this," so I stayed another week. And then I went back to Israel, and we started talking on the phone hours a day, and I said, "You know what?"
You went back.
Went back to Israel, and we communicated, a lot on the phone, but it got to a point where I said, I really have to explore this. If I really want to get married, and I'm creeping up on 40 now, I got to take this seriously. So I quit my job in Israel, packed my stuff up, and went back to California to explore this relationship. And it went on for about 3 months, and it did not work out. But now, the Intifada is in Israel going on, so tourism business is dead. My job is gone, I can't get back my job. So I stayed in the States, started looking for something to do in the States, in California, in LA again, back in Venice. couldn't seem to find the right thing, and meanwhile, I did meet my wife, and what happened to that was I actually met her 10 years before, and she was a shidduch, someone she's a preschool teacher at Hillel Hebrew Academy in Beverly Hills, and someone whose child was in her class was a friend of mine, and they set us up. We went out on 2 dates, and she was nice, I was nice, but it just wasn't a love connection. We went out twice, and 10 years went by, I had no contact, no communication whatsoever. I came back, and we both had mutual friends, several mutual friends, who knew both of us and kept trying to set us up. Not through each other, but just independently setting us up. And we kept saying, yeah, no. We went out, she's a nice girl, It's just why does it hurt to go out again? Try again. One guy finally pushed me, he said, take her number and call her. I said, okay, give me your number. So he gave me her number, and I put it in my wallet, and that was it. About a month and a half later, my roommate was going to a bat mitzvah at a shul that we didn't belong to, and he said, I don't want to go by myself, come with me, would you? And I said, come with me. Turns out the bat mitzvah girl, when she was in kindergarten, my wife was her teacher, and she at the last minute was overlooked an invitation. The mother called, and she said, I forgot to invite you, please come, and she came. And at the shul, we saw each other, and we started talking. And at that kiddush, I asked her like 3 questions, and based on those questions, I said, gee whiz, this really could be the one, because she really was where I was. I had been, all the girls I've been dating, I had this long laundry list of all the things, she's got this, she's got to have that, she's got to do this. By the time you're 40, if you're smart, that list gets significantly decreased, and it had. But for me, it was like 3 or 4 questions.
And you know what you want quicker.
3 or 4 questions, all it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
And my rabbi used to say, it's not a matter whether she's the right girl, it's a matter whether you're the right guy. Are you ready to make, because if you're the right guy, you're ready to get married, you're going to find the wife, there's many out there for you. It's a matter whether you're serious and ready, and that's sort of my case. I guess it was that was similar to the case. We met on Memorial Day weekend at that kiddush, and we were engaged by Sukkot, Chol Hamoed Sukkot, 3 months, 3.5 months, 4 months. And why it was so quick was because she was a teacher, so summertime she was off, and I was in between work. So we lived actually the same address 1 block over. And so every day for the whole summer, we dated all day and into the evening, every single day. Go to the beach, we drive to Santa Barbara, we go to San Diego, we just, it was like a speed dating, intensive speed dating. And it was really, really strange. This is really, I go to meet her parents for the first time. It was in August, so you can imagine this is already from May to August. We've been dating. I hadn't met her parents. Yeah. And we sit and we were talking. Her father says, we had family in Houston. And I said, really? Houston's such a small community. My mother's from Houston. Who's your family? He goes, I don't remember the names, but I remember when my family moved from New York to Los Angeles in 1954, he said, we drove cross country and we stayed for a week in Houston in their home. And they were pretty well-to-do people. He said they had a swimming pool. At that time, to have a swimming pool was a lot of money in that time. And he was a diamond dealer. And I said, tell me more. And he says, well, there were 2 brothers. They were both war refugees from Germany. And my father's first cousins. And he says, I'm trying to remember what the name, he was married, he says, he had a younger wife and 2 little children. And I remember about 2 years later, the wife was killed in a car accident and left these 2 young children. And I said, was his name Ike Hoffman? He goes, yes, that was my father's cousin. I said, my father's baby sister is the wife that was killed in the car accident. We all got chills. Oh. Can you imagine in Los Angeles to meet a girl, and of all the people meet, that her father and I never knew this man, this uncle, because the uncle after she died, he pulled the children back, we never knew that family. But they were my father's nephews, my first cousins. So he's cousins with my cousins, you know what I'm saying? It's like, can you imagine that? We all got chills,
Very small world.
Yeah. So, very strange. So, we got married in February of 2003. Okay. And not long after that was February 2003, my first daughter was born in August of 2004. And I was doing things on the internet, I was doing eBay, I was doing all kinds of things but the problem for me was I was looking to get back into the Jewish world. And my experience was very good, but the people that I was competing with for the higher level, executive level positions of the Jewish world had academic credentials, which I didn't have. I had a bachelor's degree. So I decided to go back to school at the age of 40 to university. I went to the University of Judaism, and I got a master's in education, an MBA in nonprofit management, and a master's and a bachelor's in Hebrew literature. So by 2007, I had finished those 3 degrees, and now had another baby, a little girl. And with 2 of them, I took, the first position was to go to Phoenix, Arizona, and I took a job as the associate head of school at a Jewish day school there. And I did not like Arizona, I didn't like the position, it wasn't for me, and I had a 3-year contract, and I was smothering. I wanted to get out of there. This is not what I wanted. Not what I thought it was. And before I knew it, Gary Weinstein, who was a fraternity brother, my brother's, I've known him since I was 10 years old, told me about a position in Dallas. He says, I got something here, it might be worth your while. And he had been sort of a mentor to me here, Gary, throughout my experience. And he told me about the position, and I came in, and I met with Janie Schultz, who was the head of the board for the CJE at the time. It was called the JED at the time, Jewish Education Department. And we just hit it off. We hit it off immediately. And based on what they were excited about wanting to do, my passion was, it was a natural fit. Mm-hmm. And so on July 1st, 2008, that's 10 years from next week,
right.
I started here in Dallas, moved to Dallas, and became executive director of what was to become the Center for Jewish Education. I came here, brought my wife here. She's a preschool teacher. She became a preschool teacher. Her name was Marnie. Marnie Meller was her maiden name, Marnie Meller. And she came here and became a preschool teacher at Akiba Academy. And we've now been here for 10 years. It gave me the opportunity to come here and work with some very, very dynamic thinkers. Janie Schultz and the Schultz family were amazing. And the Rishes, Frank and Helen Risch, the Mankoffs, Joy and Ron Mankoff, and then of course all kinds of professionals here in the day schools, the preschools, the synagogues, the temples, and it allowed me to help put in place a change of scenario, a change of the landscape, the Jewish educational landscape here. We did that by really deconstructing and then reconstructing. What wasn't working before, what was lacking before, and I had like a little bit of a roadmap. They had done 3 or 4 years before a broad community-wide picture, and I was able to see where the gaps were, and to try to fill in the gaps where we could, based on what kind of resources we had to do it with, and grow the department. I feel very good about what we left behind here.
I feel good about it too. And we're sorry to be losing you. Well, you've told us a lot of things, role models, what you're proud of. How has your family grown today? Anything specific?
Yeah, so I mentioned we're 4 boys. So I see a little about family. Right. So my oldest brother, Bernard Den, is married to Gail Botsford, and they live in Ventura, California. And then I have the second brother is Steve Den. He's married to Dina Rosenthal here in Dallas, and they live here in Dallas. And they have 2 girls and a son, 2 daughters and a son, and they have a set of twins, grandchildren. Then there's my next brother is Brian Den, and he's married to Viva Maharabani. They met at Kibbutz Ein Gedi in Dead Sea, and they have 4 kids, and I think I lost count, 12 or 13 grandchildren. They all live in Israel. He lives in Mitzvah Yericho now with his wife, and the kids live in different places in the country. Mm-hmm. And in my family, there are 3 children. We have the oldest is Sydney Rose Den. She just graduated 8th grade at Akiba Academy, and she was born on August the 9th, 2004. Then there's Jordan Gabrielle, and she was born on February the 9th, 2007. And she's now, 11? She'll be 12 in February. And the youngest is Alexander Zieskind Den. He's named after my father, Sidney Den. And he was born on November the 25th, 2008. And he's going into 4th grade. And we are just about to embark on a very exciting journey. We're going to explore living in Israel. We just secured a house in Beit Shemesh, Israel, and got the kids enrolled in school. And we are going to live for at least a year, hopefully for 2 years, before we make a decision whether Israel's the place we want to stay and make our home. And if not, we'll come back. But I'm hoping that the kids will thrive there and will enjoy living life there, and if that's the case, we'll stay. And if it's not, we'll explore what our other options are at that point.
Well, we certainly wish you luck, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you doing this interview with us. It's
Yeah.
very exciting, and all the best. Thank
Is there
you.
anything more than I?
That's it. If there's anything else you'd like to add at all.
No, my wish for Dallas is that people will become more literate about being Jews, about being Jewish, and know what it is that it means for them to be Jewish. I mean, we have Jewish autonomy today, so we were able to make choices, but to become educated. And I think, unfortunately, that there's a lack of desire today to learn what it means to be Jewish, to learn anything Jewish. I think that you can look at the numbers of people who are engaging, just to engage. We have a problem with under-engagement and under affiliation. We're talking about affiliation rates, and engagement rates are very different. So to be affiliated, one can give a $10 gift to the Jewish Federation, and that makes you affiliated. But that's not meaningful. I mean, to be engaged is another issue. So my wish is that people will choose to be Jewishly engaged and to learn what it means to be Jewish, because if they don't, there's no reason to be Jewish. Without learning what it means to be Jewish, about what learning, and it's not enough to learn it. You have to do something. So when I was here, that's one of the things that I did when I was here, is to create that motto: learn Jewish, think Jewish, do Jewish. And those three things, you can't just learn about Jewish, you can't learn Jewish and expect to have it be perpetuating. And you can't think Jewish and expect it to be perpetuating. But if you do Jewish along with learning and thinking, then there's a possibility that it is perpetuated. You can't just drop your children off at Sunday school and say, make my kids Jewish. It doesn't work. There has to be a partnership with parents, with families, and with the schools. And if you don't do that, I'm just very, very sad to see what the possibilities are. I'm not optimistic, but I'm hopeful. How can I say?
That's good. I like that. Thank you. I'm hopeful.